The brass elevator doors reflected Emma Chen's tired eyes as she clutched the leather portfolio against her chest. 3 years as executive secretary to Marcus Hale, CEO of Hale Industries, and she'd never been this late. Her father's funeral had run longer than expected. Grief had a way of ignoring schedules. She stepped into the 42nd floor's marble expanse, her heels clicking softly. The executive suite hummed with its usual controlled chaos, phones ringing, keyboards clattering, the scent of expensive coffee permeating everything. But something felt different. Wrong. Marcus stood outside his office, his tall frame rigid, speaking in low, sharp tones to two security guards. He turned as she approached, his steel-gray eyes narrowing. "Ms. Chun." "Finally. I apologize, Mr. Hale. The funeral. I'm aware." He cut her off, his voice cold as winter glass. "We need to talk. My office. Now." Emma's stomach tightened. She'd worked for Marcus long enough to recognize that tone. It was the one he used before firing someone. She followed him inside, the heavy door closing with a decisive click behind them. He didn't sit. Instead, he moved to his desk and held up a watch, vintage, with a worn leather band and a scratched crystal face. Emma's heart stopped. "This was found in your desk drawer during a routine security sweep," Marcus said, each word precisely articulated. "Want to explain why you have a Patek Philippe that matches the description of the one stolen from my home office last month?" The blood drained from Emma's face. "That's not. Mr. Hale, that watch is mine." His laugh was bitter. "Really? A $20,000 vintage timepiece. On a secretary's salary. It was my father's." The words came out strangled. Emma's hands trembled as she set down the portfolio. "He received it as a graduation gift from his mentor in 1987. He wore it every day until the Alzheimer's got bad, until he couldn't remember how to fasten the clasp anymore." Marcus's expression didn't soften. "Convenient story. Especially since my identical watch disappeared 3 weeks ago during the executive gala. You were there, coordinating with the catering staff. Access to the entire house." "I would never." Emma's voice cracked. "My father died 4 days ago, Mr. Hale. That watch is all I have left of him. It's been in my desk because I couldn't bear to leave it at home. I wanted it close. Security footage shows you entering the West Wing that night, where my private office is located." He placed the watch on the desk between them like evidence in a trial. "I trusted you, Emma. 3 years of trust, and this is what I get." Emma stared at the watch, at her father's watch, and felt her world crumbling. The initials JC for James Chun were engraved on the back, worn smooth by decades of her father's thumb rubbing over them absently. She'd watched him do it 1,000 times. "Check the engraving," she whispered, tears burning her eyes. Marcus picked up the watch, turned it over. His jaw tightened, but his expression remained unreadable. "That proves nothing," he said finally. "You could have had that done." The injustice of it crashed over her like a wave. She'd buried her father yesterday, and now she was being accused of theft, her grief twisted into evidence of guilt. "Then call the police," Emma said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I'm telling you the truth. That watch was my father's graduation gift, and it's all I have left to remember him by." Marcus Hale prided himself on reading people. 20 years building a corporate empire from nothing had sharpened his instincts to a razor's edge. Liars had tells. They looked away, touched their faces, offered too many details. Emma Chun did none of these things. She stood before him, tears streaming down her face, and met his gaze with something that looked uncomfortably like betrayal. He turned the watch over again, studying the worn engraving. JC. His own stolen watch had his grandfather's initials, MH. Doubt crept in, unwelcome and insistent. "Sit down," he said, his tone softer. Emma remained standing. He tried again. "Please." She sank into the leather chair across from his desk, her composure fracturing. Marcus had seen her handle crisis after crisis with unflappable grace. The botched merger, the product recall, the day his brother had stormed into this very office threatening a lawsuit. Emma had never wavered. Now, she looked broken. "Tell me about your father," he said quietly. Emma's laugh was hollow. "Why? So you can poke holes in my story?" "Because I might have made a mistake." The admission tasted like acid. Marcus Hale didn't make mistakes. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. James Chun immigrated from Taiwan in 1985 with $300 and an engineering degree. Worked at Sterling Manufacturing for 30 years. His boss, Robert Sterling, gave him that watch when he graduated from the executive management program. Her voice steadied as she spoke, finding anchor in memory. Dad wore it to my college graduation, my mother's funeral, my first day working here. He wore it until he forgot what it was for. Marcus felt something uncomfortable twist in his chest. He'd spoken at his grandfather's funeral 5 years ago, wearing the old man's watch. The same watch that had vanished from his office safe 3 weeks ago. The security footage. I went to the West Wing to use the restroom, Emma interrupted. The main floor bathroom had a burst pipe that night. Remember? We had to call emergency plumbing. I told you about it the next morning. Marcus did remember. Vaguely. He'd been distracted that week, preparing for the board meeting. He picked up his phone, dialed security. Pull the footage from the executive gala. West Wing, all angles. And check the maintenance logs for that night. He paused. Also, get me the photos from the police report about my stolen watch. Now. While they waited, an awful silence filled the office. Emma stared at her hands. Marcus found himself studying her, really looking, perhaps for the first time in months. She'd lost weight. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her suit, usually impeccable, hung slightly loose. When did your father pass? He asked. Sunday afternoon. 2:30. Her voice was barely a whisper. I was holding his hand. He opened his eyes, looked right at me, and for just a second, he knew who I was. Then he was gone. Marcus's throat tightened. His grandfather had died the same way. A moment of clarity, then nothing. The phone buzzed. Security's sending the files now, sir. Marcus opened his laptop, pulling up the footage. He watched Emma leave the ballroom, walk to the West Wing, enter the bathroom. She emerged 6 minutes later. The timestamp showed her nowhere near his office. He switched to the police photos. His watch. Definitely his. The crystal had a distinctive crack in the corner, shaped like a lightning bolt. He zoomed in on Emma's watch, still sitting on his desk. Pristine crystal. Different leather band. When he looked closer, even the dial was slightly different. Hers had Arabic numerals. His had Roman. Similar watches. Not the same watch. God damn it, Marcus breathed. Emma looked up. What? They're different watches. He turned the laptop toward her. Mine has a cracked crystal. Yours doesn't. He watched the realization hit her. Relief, anger, exhaustion crashing together. So you believe me now? After accusing me of being a thief? After I buried my father yesterday and came to work today because I knew you had the Singapore meeting and needed the briefing materials prepared? Each word landed like a blow. Marcus had built his reputation on facts, on evidence, on cold logic. But he'd let emotion, the violation of theft, the wound to his trust, cloud his judgment. Emma, you what? She stood abruptly. You're sorry? Sorry you accused me without evidence? Sorry you made the worst day of my life even worse. Her voice rose, years of professionalism finally cracking. I have given you everything, Mr. Hale. Nights, weekends, holidays. I've rearranged my life around your schedule. And the moment something goes wrong, you assumed the worst of me. She was right. Marcus knew she was right. I missed my father's last months because I was here. Emma continued, her voice breaking. He'd call, confused and scared, and I'd be in meetings I couldn't leave. I told myself it mattered, that this job mattered. And you thought I was a thief. Marcus stood, moved around the desk. You're right. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't. Emma's breath hitched. She pressed her hand to her mouth, shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. The grief she'd been holding back, through the funeral, through the accusation, through everything, finally broke through. Without thinking, Marcus did something he'd never done in his professional life. He pulled her into an embrace. She stiffened, then collapsed against him, crying into his shoulder. He held her, this woman who'd kept his life running for 3 years, and felt shame burn through him. When had he become so cynical, so quick to suspect? When had he stopped seeing the people around him as human? Take the rest of the week, he said quietly. Take 2 weeks. With full pay. Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. The Singapore meeting. I'll handle it. Or I'll postpone it. The world won't end if Marcus Hale isn't prepared for once. He handed her the watch. I'm sorry about your father. And I'm sorry I added to your pain. She took the watch, cradled it against her chest like something precious. Thank you. As she turned to leave, Marcus felt something shift inside him, a hairline fracture in the armor he'd built around himself. Emma. She paused at the door. When you come back, I'd like to hear more about him. About your father. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Maybe. The door closed softly behind her, and Marcus sank into his chair, staring at the security footage frozen on his screen. He'd built an empire by trusting no one, but in doing so, he'd forgotten the cost. 2 weeks later, Emma returned to find flowers on her desk, white lilies, her father's favorite. A card in Marcus's handwriting read simply, "Welcome back." She touched the petals gently, unsure how to feel. The time off had been necessary. She'd sorted through her father's belongings, hosted a memorial with his old colleagues, allowed herself to grieve without the pressure of deadlines. But anger still simmered beneath the surface, a hot coal she couldn't quite extinguish. Marcus was in his office, visible through the glass wall. He looked up as she set down her bag, his expression uncertain, an unusual look for a man who typically wore confidence like a second skin. She knocked, entered without waiting for permission. "Mr. Hale." "Emma, thank you for coming back." He gestured to the chair. "Please sit. I owe you more than an apology. You gave me one already." She remained standing, a rushed one, given in the heat of shame. Marcus stood as well, leveling the playing field. "You deserve better. You deserve the truth about why I reacted the way I did." Emma crossed her arms, waiting. "The watch that was stolen," Marcus began, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it, "belonged to my grandfather. He built this company from nothing after the war. Every success I've had, every decision I've made, I made it wearing that watch." He paused, jaw working. When it disappeared, it felt like losing him all over again. Like I'd failed to protect the one thing that connected me to where I came from. Understanding flickered through Emma's anger. "So when you saw a similar watch in my desk, I wanted someone to blame. I wanted it to be simple. Catch the thief, recover the watch, restore order." He met her eyes. "Instead, I hurt someone who'd been nothing but loyal. Someone who was grieving." Emma felt her defenses crack, just slightly. "It doesn't excuse what you did." "No," Marcus agreed. "It doesn't. But I want you to understand that my accusation came from pain, not prejudice. Not that it matters. Pain doesn't justify cruelty." They stood in silence, two people bound by professional obligation, separated by broken trust. "The watch hasn't been recovered?" Emma asked finally. "No. The police have no leads. Security reviewed all the footage. It's like it vanished." Marcus's frustration was evident. "I've accepted it's gone. I'm more concerned with repairing what I damaged here." Emma moved to the window, looking out over the city. "My father taught me that trust is like his watch, valuable because it's earned over time, devastating when it's broken." She turned back to Marcus. "But he also taught me that people make mistakes. That grace is as important as accountability. I don't deserve your grace." "Maybe not," Emma admitted. "But I'm tired of carrying anger. I've carried enough grief." She pulled her father's watch from her pocket. She'd started wearing it on a chain around her neck, close to her heart. "Dad used to tell me stories about his boss, Robert Sterling. How Sterling took a chance on an immigrant with broken English and big dreams. How he mentored him, believed in him, gave him that watch as a symbol of potential." Marcus listened, something shifting in his expression. "Dad said Sterling wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, said the wrong things, let pressure cloud his judgment sometimes. But he owned his errors. And he saw people, really saw them, not just what they could do for him." The implication hung between them. "You're right," Marcus said quietly. "I stopped seeing people. I've been so focused on protecting what I built that I forgot why I built it." He paused. "I'd like to change that. Starting with you." "How?" "By listening. By being better." He gestured to the chair again. "Would you tell me about your father? Really tell me. Not as an apology, but because I genuinely want to know." Emma studied him, searching for manipulation and finding only sincerity. Slowly, she sat. "He loved crossword puzzles," she began, her voice soft with memory. "Every Sunday morning, coffee and the newspaper. Even when the Alzheimer's got bad, he'd sit with the puzzle, pen in hand, staring at the squares like the answers might appear." Marcus listened, truly listened, as Emma painted a portrait of James Chun. The stories flowed. Her father teaching her to ride a bike, his terrible singing voice, the way he'd dance with her mother in the kitchen. The watch threaded through every memory, marking time, bearing witness. When she finished, tears tracked down her cheeks, but she was smiling. He sounds like he was remarkable, Marcus said. He was ordinary. That's what made him remarkable. Emma wiped her eyes. He worked hard, loved deeply, and left the world slightly better than he found it. That's enough, isn't it? Marcus thought of his grandfather, of the empire built and the cost paid. Yes, it's more than enough. A knock interrupted them. Security, with an evidence bag. Mr. Hale? Police recovered your watch. Arrested a maintenance worker who'd been pawning items from multiple offices. Marcus took the bag, pulled out his grandfather's watch. The cracked crystal caught the light, familiar and beloved. He held it for a moment, feeling its weight, then looked up at Emma. I'm glad you got it back, she said. So am I. Marcus fastened it around his wrist, where it belonged. But I learned something more valuable than this while it was gone. What's that? That legacy isn't about objects. It's about how we treat people, the impressions we leave, the trust we build or break. He met her eyes. Your father's legacy lives in you, in your integrity, your compassion, your strength. That's worth more than any watch. Emma felt something loosen in her chest, the last grip of anger releasing. Thank you. No, thank you. For coming back. For giving me a chance to be better. Marcus extended his hand. Partners? Really partners this time. Not just boss and secretary. Emma looked at his hand, then at his face. She saw genuine contrition there, and possibility. She thought of her father, of grace and second chances. She shook his hand. Partners. As she left his office, Emma touched the watch at her neck. Her father's time had passed, but his lessons remained, etched deeper than any engraving, more permanent than gold. In his office, Marcus looked at his recovered watch and made a silent promise to his grandfather. He would honor the legacy not just by success, but by humanity, by seeing people, by being worthy of their trust. 2 watches, 2 legacies, and between them, a bridge rebuilt, not perfect, but genuine. That, they both realized, was enough. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel and enjoy these other amazing stories.